There's something that's been bugging me about Pokemon for like... When did the anime come out? For like 20-something years now. And on the surface, it may seem like a simple question, but I assure you, it's more complex and interesting than you might think. And that question is, are legendary Pokemon truly unique? Are legendary Pokemon, and mythical Pokemon as well, one of a kind? Or are they just really, really rare? The games seem to most often imply that they are one of a kind, and for a while the anime seemed to support that, but 20 years is a long time, and there have been a lot of examples pointing to the contrary. So let's start with the anime. It'd probably be hard to find more than one of each legendary in the Pokemon anime, right? Even though we just talked about that a video ago with Rayquaza. Yeah! So, here's a list. Yeah, no, it may have been true at one time, but here's just a few of the legendary or mythical Pokemon that appear more than once in the anime. Remember the Lugia, Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres that appeared in the second movie, and were responsible for the balance of nature, and could not be captured under any circumstances lest the world ends? Well, Frontier Brian Nolan caught a wild Articuno. Why isn't the world over? Did this not count? Or maybe this is a different Articuno. We know there are at least 2 Lugia, because Silver has a Lugia that was the young offspring of another. And that's not even to mention all the other times that the legendary birds appeared all over the world. Are these guardians of the islands that hold the freaking planet together, just following Ash all over the place despite their responsibilities that if they ever leave the world ends? Or are there more than one of each? And much like the Articuno situation, Darkrai has been seen both in the wild and in the 10th movie, and also owned by a trainer in the anime. So is this the same Darkrai at different points in time, despite neither one recognizing Ash? Or are these different Darkrai? Some even go as far as to argue that the Mewtwo in the 1st and 16th movies must be different Mewtwo. But since the backstory of the 16th movie Mewtwo is mostly glossed over, we can't be certain. And then there are also mythical Pokemon that we know there's more than one of them, like Fion and Milton in the anime, along with the thousands upon thousands of Zygarde cells, as well as Genesect in the 16th movie. Genesect brings us to the next point. One of them is shiny. Seriously, it's a completely different color. So how could it be the same Genesect? Okay, well, it's obvious there's more than one Genesect because they're standing right next to each other, and there's a bunch of them. But this comes up again as well. Rayquaza appeared in the 7th movie, where there's also 2 Deoxys. But later in the 18th movie, Hoopa summons a shiny one. Oh, and I guess the legendary beasts had a shiny version too, from the 13th movie. But that's not even all of it. Here's some other instances of multiple legendaries appearing in different regions. So, are legendary Pokemon unique? Well, the anime gives us an unequivocal no to some of them. Okay then, it's settled. Wait a minute, just because that's how it is in the anime, that doesn't mean it goes the same for the Pokemon games. It's not an uncommon belief that they take place in 2 different universes, and there seems to never be more than one of any legendary in the Pokemon games. But we're not done here. If there's only one of each legendary per game, then that makes them unique, right? But then again, when Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon let you soar through ultra space and into alternate universes, the one legendary limit was still intact. Even though it shouldn't realistically be at that point. You'd think that a multiverse would literally have an infinite number of them. So maybe the whole one legendary per game thing is a game mechanic as opposed to lore. Trust me when I say, the Pokemon games are filled to the brim with that. Game mechanics over lore. I complain about it all the time on this channel. So we need to look deeper at the individual species themselves. So what about Mew? As the common ancestor of all Pokemon, that must mean there have been at one point a population of them, and thus more than one, right? And what about other mythical Pokemon like Victini, Jirachi, Meltan, and the others? Well, the game is kinda ambiguous in all of their dex entries, although Manaphy is able to breed multiple Phione. But Phione's status as a legendary Pokemon is debated at best. However, the majority of legendary Pokemon throughout the games appear in different places, often completely different regions. For example, the legendary birds can be found in their nests in Kanto. They are also roaming Sinnoh, the Sea Spirit's Den in Kalos, and in Ore. Not to mention Moltres' nest in Kanto has 3 different places: Victory Road, Mount Ember, and Mount Silver. Ho-Oh is said to have resurrected the legendary beasts, right? So Entei, Suicune, and Raikou must be one of a kind. Yet they not only roam Johto, but they can also be found roaming Kanto, or within the trackless forest in Hoenn, or in the Ore region again. Even Kyogre and Groudon and Rayquaza can be found in the embedded tower in Johto, in addition to their local residences, Chillin and Hoenn. So that means none of them are truly unique? But then we must consider Mewtwo. Everything about Mewtwo's origins as a science experiment gone wrong seems to at least imply that Mewtwo is unique. Mewtwo's backstory is pretty heavily explored, even in the games in the first generation, and yet, Mewtwo somehow appears in the unknown dungeon in Kalos. But maybe Mewtwo just moved here, Mewtwo travels the world. He has been shown to wear a cloak in the anime to hide his true form. However, there is another way to explain the multiple legendary thing. The multiverse. Of course, the multiverse theory was around for a while in Pokemon, but Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire finally brought it up, with Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon going all in on the idea. Essentially, the idea goes that every version of the game, and possibly each copy of a Pokemon game, is an alternate universe from one another. Not only does this explain how you can trade supposedly one-of-a-kind legendaries from world to world, but it could also possibly justify there being 2 Mewtwo, and thus multiples of all the others in various regions. With that presumption, Mewtwo simply lives in Kanto in one universe, but lives in Kalos in the other. The Kalos Mewtwo's past could even be different, and thus involve Mega Evolution. But do you see the problem with that idea? It basically invalidates all of the other examples we mentioned earlier. Any legendary Pokemon living in a different region in a different game could all be chalked up to the multiverse. But there's more. There actually are a few cases where the games break the one legendary rule, with legendaries that one may assume to be unique. Which brings us to the battle frontier. There are several frontier brains that use the legendaries of the region in which they live. Tower Tycoon Palmer in Sinnoh has a Regigigas, Heatran, and Cresselia. Pyramid King Brandon in Hoenn has all 3 legendary birds and the 3 Regis. Seriously, he has an entire legendary team. That means you could catch all 3 Regis and battle this guy, who has 3 more Regis of his own. All in the same game. But before I go off and say no legendaries are unique, you may stop me and say, Lockstin, what about the gods? Surely they must be unique. And sure, if normal legendaries aren't unique, Arceus and its initial creations still could truly be the only unique, to the toppest degree, legendaries, which would be fitting for deities. But, well, you might know where this is going. In Heart Gold and Soul Silver, if you bring Arceus to the Sinjoh ruins, it'll just create a new deity of your choice. You get a Dialga, Palkia, or Giratina. And since Dialga and Palkia created time and space, and you're standing in the ruins, like, right now, that means Dialga and Palkia are already out there somewhere. Yet, here you are, hatching another. And then there was Arceus, our last hope for some individuality. Arceus, as the creator of the Pokemon universe, may truly be the only guaranteed unique Pokemon in existence. In fact, it's possible that a single Arceus governs the entire multiverse from, like, the 11th dimension or something. But oh no. A myth about Arceus called The Original Story claims that Arceus was born from an egg that appeared in a void out of a vortex. So I have to ask, a vortex from where? And what the heck laid the egg? Did Arceus truly come into being out of nothingness? Or did its egg come from somewhere, laid by something elsewhere in the multiverse? Is it not possible that each time an Arceus reproduces, a new universe is born in the multiverse? Is it crazy to consider that someday soon an arceus will breed 2 new eggs, send them off into a vortex, and they hatch to create the Sword and Shield multiverses, respectively? Maybe? There's no solid answer here, but it's definitely a case-by-case basis with that question of originality. But what do you think? Let me know your thoughts down below. And also, special thanks to the folks at Game Theorem who helped write and research this episode. Check out their podcast on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And as always, never stop using your noggin.